Right, here I am again.
Hello.
Now, Aaron, thank you very much for joining us.
Good to be here.
Tell us about Bloom and Wild.
Bloom and Wild exists to make it a joy to send and receive flowers all over the UK and soon internationally. We make it possible to order flowers in well under a minute, mainly on people's mobile phones, which is where people seem to want to order flowers. And then we deliver them everywhere in the UK through people's letterboxes in a formatted packaging that we came up with a few years ago that a number of other people are now using to make flower delivery more seamless.
And so when did this idea come about, and what sort of spurred on that moment?
I was and still am a huge fan of a company that most people here will know called Graze that does snack boxes through the letterbox, and was just really intrigued by the idea of presenting items in a small format so that they're really easy to send and receive. And I'd had a few so-so experiences sending flowers myself, and as I had more and more of those, I wondered if there was a way to create a modern technology-enabled flower company that would make it a real joy. And I guess that was something I was motivated by. I don't have the qualifications to solve a disease or anything like that, but if I can do something that's making people happier day to day, that felt like something that was worth trying.
So the way that they're delivered is kind of flat packed in a box, really, isn't it? And then you give instructions on how the recipient can then put them together into a nice display.
We don't love the term flat packed because it's associated with, not your fault, it's associated with sort of furniture that's hellish to build.
Yeah.
But yes, they arrive, the flowers are at both ends of the box, and we put nets around the heads of individual flower stems which protect and compress them in transit, and then the recipient of the flowers arranges them themselves. When we started, we thought that people would mainly buy these flowers for themselves because people wouldn't want to send a gift where the recipient of the gift needs to do work. And actually, it turned out to be the opposite of that. Recipients of flower gifts seem to really enjoy engaging with the creative process, and that's turned out to be a product benefit rather than the disadvantage that we thought it would be.
Brilliant. So it was 2013 that you were founded, is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah, and what sort of traction have you gained since then?
Yeah, so in our first week, we sent out 7 boxes of flowers, which felt a little embarrassing. We had this huge sort of like empty warehouse and like production line and stuff like this, and it took about 6 minutes to run our production line. That's because we were really inefficient at running it. And we've grown nicely since then. We now send out tens of thousands of bouquets of flowers every month all over the UK, and we're just starting to send into Ireland, France, and Germany as well. So that's several 100% growth every year. And ditto if you look at revenue or other metrics people like to look at. I think more importantly, we have improved rather than become more lax about our customer experience over that period. So our Net Promoter Score, which we obsess over, is a little over 80% now, which is higher than like Apple's or Amazon's or companies that we really admire. And we get really strong ratings across all of the various review platforms that are out there. And that's really important to us because you can grow by, I guess, raising money and pouring it into marketing and creating something that's so-so, and then people just try it and don't repeat, and you get a big revenue number, but I don't think you're really solving a problem. And we've always been really obsessed with the experience we're creating as we're getting bigger.
Okay, so speaking about the metrics that people like to focus on, one of them is funding. You've raised a couple of rounds of funding, is that right?
Yeah, we raised around a split round of seed funding just when we started, and then we've raised 2 venture capital rounds, one led by MMC Ventures, and then more recently another one led by Burda Principal Investments, which is the VC arm of a large German media company. And so we've raised a little over £7 million in total so far.
So tell me about that journey to raising funding, because that's one of the things that most of the startups that I speak to, they're having a problem with. They just don't even know where to start. So what was your experience of going through that process?
I guess we've done it in a few different stages, and because we've done it at like one bit at a time, it's maybe been a little bit easier than trying to raise all of it in one go. So actually, the first time we raised money, we only raised, only is not the right word, but we raised a relatively small amount of £150,000, and that was through a scheme, SEIS, which is government funded, which means that it's more attractive for investors to make an investment because they get some tax benefits if the investment doesn't work out. And we just really called up everybody we knew and told them that we're doing flowers through the letterbox, and that they could invest in it, and they get their money back in their taxes if it didn't work. And did they want to invest? And most people said no, but a couple of people thought it sounded cool, and we sent them the product and they liked it, and then they told their friends about it. And I guess because we had a physical thing that we could send people that was new and different rather than just a pitch deck, that maybe made it a little bit easier to raise that first round and get that first bit of traction. And then we just really, when we had that money, we were ultra careful about how we spent it, and we knew that we were not going to be able to get the company profitable with that amount of money. So it was all about only spending carefully on things that would enable us to get to raise another round and continue our journey. And we always had that as the milestone that we're working towards. We also had the benefit of a seasonal industry. So flowers has 3 peaks at Christmas, Valentine's, and Mother's Day. And we raised the first round just before that peak period. And then I guess the peak period enabled us to show stronger traction because it's when people buy more flowers. And I think that helped us raise a further seed round, and then it sort of went on from there. The other thing is with MMC, who were our first VC backers, we'd actually got to know them a couple of years before we ended up raising money from them. And people always say you should, meet people before you need to raise money. And it sounds like a bit of a cliche, but it's so true. And I think if we'd gone and pitched them and said, can we, can you invest in us now? I don't think they'd have had the confidence, but we'd actually got to know them, and we kept them in the loop about our progress, and that really helped us raise that first venture round.
But then I suppose from your point of view as well, it's best to meet the investors before, because as much as they need to make sure that they're investing in the right company, you need to make sure that you're taking investment from the right people, because if you get that wrong, that can be catastrophic.
Absolutely. So I've never experienced getting it wrong, and we're lucky to have really good investors on board, but I know others who do feel that they've raised money from the wrong investors, and it does make board meetings and the process in between them really challenging. We found that with MMC in particular, they had backed a couple of other similar businesses to us, so Packed Coffee and Gusto, who are also doing sort of direct delivery of branded consumer products. And I spoke to the founders of those companies, and that made me comfortable with MMC backing us, and it also made me comfortable that they were real subject matter experts. And then similarly with Burda, when we raised money from them, they had other similar businesses in their portfolio, and I think that made us relatively more attractive to each other.
Okay. So aside from the struggles of raising funding, what else would you say have been the biggest challenges in setting up your company?
Technology, 100%. And I massively underestimated this when I started, and I thought that the sort of technology that we would need to build Bloom and Wild would be like one piece of the puzzle, and like not even the biggest piece. And it's still by far the biggest piece now. And we actually started again after a year when we'd raised a bit more money, because the initial technology we built was not fit for purpose, and that was a result of my and my co-founders' inexperience. It still remains the most difficult thing to get right.
So were neither of you very technical co-founders?
No, exactly. Okay. And I think if we were to do it again, we'd do it with a technical co-founder next time. And it's our biggest source of advantage is our people and the technology that we can create. That's what makes us different to others. So it's still really difficult.
And how have you found expanding into different markets?
We're just at the beginning of it, but the initial reaction is really positive. It's complicating our business because we need to set up a local supply chain in each of these markets. So there's a lot of steps. You can't be very MVP. There are a lot of steps before you see any progress. You need local flower growers, shipping, website, translation, marketing, etc. So we're in the sort of compiling resources and testing while we do so phase, which takes a long time and is frustrating, but we're getting good feedback and we're well on the way.
Okay. Running slightly out of time here, so have you had any key piece of advice that you would give to someone setting up a tech company here in the UK? What would it be?
I think the biggest thing is the whole concept of minimum viable product, and actually like starting something that's really simple, and rather than you guessing what the features are that you think your customers will value, building something with really few features and then seeing what your customers actually complain about as being missing. And we thought we'd done this and that we built something really simple, and actually we built loads of complex, like different forms of like subscription, payment and configuration and stuff, which we thought was like the minimum. And actually like most of that we don't even have anymore at all. And we could have launched way more quickly without it, and then seen what whether we needed it or not.
Okay, so don't assume, do your market research.
Or like get something out and then like let your customers tell you whether, rather than market research, like try to sell something and figure out why people won't buy it, rather than ask them like what would make them buy it.
Okay, great advice. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Emily.